Rate and review Marijuana Today daily on iTunes today. Just search for the term marijuana. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, January 31st, 2018, and you're tuned in to episode 421 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is a piece by our buddy Tom Angel over at Marijuana Moments about President Donald No Collusion, You're the Collusion, Trump's State of the Union address, in which he said, quote, "We must get much tougher on drug dealers and pushers if we're going to succeed in stopping this scourge," unquote, referring to the ongoing opioid crisis that is currently killing more than 175 Americans every day and that the Trump administration is ignoring outright, at least on a practical level. The drug policy comments were, of course, a small part of the president's speech, one that's being slammed today all over the media sphere for its hypocrisy, narcissism, and light fascist overtones. Also, the president really likes to clap for himself. Open up Tom's piece over at Marijuana Moment for more on this one. Swinging out west to California, we have news that State Treasurer John Chiang has laid out plans for creating a public bank owned by the state to service legal marijuana businesses. This is one of our industry's bigger problems yet to be solved, and yesterday, Chiang proposed that his state form a new bank not unlike the one started in North Dakota back in 1919 to better service local farmers and industry. California is a huge state with a massive legal marijuana industry that is today mostly doing its business in cash. That is an untenable situation, so one way or another in the foreseeable future, something is going to change so that the state doesn't have to collect billions of dollars in tax revenue in 10s and 20s. State Treasurer Chiang's plan calls for a feasibility study to be conducted on the idea of California starting a cannabis bank, with results to be reported by the end of the year. We'll track this one as it develops. Keeping our focus in the Golden State for our final top story of the day, we have the Cannifornian looking into the issue of California's high tax rate for legal marijuana sales, with some localities imposing as high a tax as 40% above retail cost. California charges a base excise tax of 15% on all cannabis sales, but also allows local towns and municipalities to tack on their own taxes as high as 15%, in addition to an 8 to 10% sales tax. There's a lot of discussion going on in California over the high taxes on legal marijuana, with no indication that they'll settle down anytime soon. So I'd open this one up for the full read so you can be as fully caught up as possible. This storyline is going to be an interesting and instructive one to watch. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, our weekly show Marijuana Today, and the ever-popular email newsletter, the MJ Today Media Newsfeed. We are hiring. MJ Today Media needs someone to come on board and lead up our sales efforts. Our potential book of business is now large enough to justify bringing on a self-starting, highly motivated, hard-working salesperson. Do you love sales and business development? Are you either in the legal marijuana industry right now, or would you like to be? Do you have experience selling media? And are you excited about the idea of joining a small but growing media startup? If the answer to most of those questions is yes, then you should email me at shay@mjtodaymedia.com to talk more about becoming our new Director of Business Development, or VP of Biz Dev, or Head of Sales, or whatever else you want your title to be. This is a full-time position with a base salary and a healthy commission that we really need to fill. We have a ton of inventory ready to sell right now, so a successful candidate could really hit the road running, bringing in new business. If you or anyone you know would excel at this job, then please email me at, once again, shay@mjtodaymedia.com, with Shay spelled S-H-E-A, shay@mjtodaymedia.com. All right, time for the blitz. Yesterday in my home state of Maine, lawmakers took up discussions on our aborted adult use legal sales program, stuck in stasis thanks to our obstructionist Governor Paul LePage and his Republican flunkies in the state House and Senate. The state's ban on retail adult use sales expires at the end of today, and a proposed bill is being considered that would extend it until the spring, although there's little hope that an agreed-upon plan would be ready even by then. Regular listeners should remember that a bipartisan legislative committee worked for the better part of last year on putting together a bill that was far from perfect, but nonetheless was a well-constructed and thought-out plan to start with. And along the way, as that piece of legislation was being constructed, Governor LePage and his Maine legislative lackey, House Leader Ken Fredette, ignored and resisted all requests for input and help. Then, when the bill was finalized and presented, LePage vetoed it, saying he hadn't had a chance to be involved. This is another one we'll be tracking closely. Canadian marijuana company Cannabis Wheaton just announced their acquisition of Inverell, a company based in Uruguay that produces CBD and low-THC cannabis for that country's legal market. Cannabis Wheaton will spend $15 million Canadian buying up 80% of Inverell, with $2 million to be paid in cash and the balance in Cannabis Wheaton stock. The San Diego Union Tribune has a good piece up about the early opening days of that city's legal adult use marijuana program, which by all reported accounts have been brisk and busy. Soccer moms and older folks are coming out of the woodworks to buy cannabis, stores are selling more than they thought they would, and few are worried much by the recent blustering of U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Boulder, Colorado-based cannabis-focused venture capital incubator Canopy Ventures is launching a new $50 million investment fund that will target early-stage marijuana startups. The fund will be called Canopy Ventures 1 and will be deployed in, quote, high-risk, high-reward investments, unquote. Bruce Barcott over at Leafly has a useful article up listing some of the different estimated prices for marijuana found around the world, with Japan and South Korea having the most costly at just over $32 a gram, and Ecuador holding out the cheapest spot with grams costing $1.34 each. In terms of U.S. markets, the Washington, D.C. area has the most expensive at just a tick over $18 a gram, and Seattle, Washington bringing up the bottom at $7.58 a gram. This presents a decent picture of the external costs of marijuana prohibition, though obviously there are lots of other factors that comes into play with these prices. Still, a good one to read. Scott's Miracle-Gro has been one of the most aggressive conventional corporations staking out a slice of the newly emerging legal marijuana market, with multiple acquisitions under its belt of various companies focusing on cannabis cultivation. The division of the company under which it organizes its cannabis brands is now responsible for 7% of its overall revenue. Yesterday, in a conference call, CEO Jim Hagdorn said that they were mostly done with cannabis acquisitions, though they could spend another $50 to $100 million on the right companies. As Scott's Miracle-Gro is one of the few publicly traded non-penny stocks with exposure to legal cannabis, this is another good one to open up in full. And finally for today, licensed Canadian medical marijuana company Hydropothecary closed up the large fundraising deal it announced earlier this month by pulling in just under $150 million Canadian. The company, backed by a bevy of underwriters, issued 37,375,000 units at $4 a unit. Open up new Cannabis Ventures for all the details on this one. Another day, another huge deal up in Canada. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says, Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.